Good morning. Welcome to today's lesson. In today's lesson, I am going to teach Grade 10 Social Science India and the Contemporary World Part 2 under Chapter 2 about nationalism in India. This is one of the important and the biggest chapter in grade 10th chapter 2. This chapter can be divided into three different parts. Under the first part, you are going to learn about introduction of nationalism in India up to 1919. In part 2, you are going to learn a detailed information from 1919 to 1930, and in part 3 you are going to learn from 1930 to 1947 till getting independence. Before going to learn this chapter, we should know the learning objectives. The main learning objectives of this chapter are: one is the knowledge, second is understanding, third one is application, fourth one is skills. Under the first learning objective, knowledge, students are able to get the knowledge about the non-cooperation movement, Quit India movement, Chauri Chaura incident, Vande Mataram movement. Like the national movements, the detailed information year-wise they are going to get the knowledge. And under the second learning objectives, students are able to understand the leadership of Indian National Congress under the moderates, under the extremists, and under the Mahatma Gandhi. And also the third learning objective, application. Under this, students are able to analyze the present movements against to the state government and the central governments, comparing with the previous national movements. And in the last learning objective, students are able to locate the places where the national movements raised in our country. So these are the four main learning objectives from this chapter. And after that, after learning this chapter, students are able to explain about the sacrifice and advent of Mahatma Gandhi turn around the political movement in India. This is the first learning outcome. And the second learning outcome is students will be able to develop citizenship through understanding the contribution of the common man in the anti-colonial movement in India. These are the two main learning outcomes of this chapter. And the main topics which you are going to learn from this chapter, that is about nationalism in India, are: one is about the introduction. Under this introduction, you are going to learn what happened in Indian history up to 1919. And the second topic, you are going to learn about the First World War, Khilafat and non-cooperation movement. Under the second topic, you are going to learn about the First World War was happened from 1914 to 1918, the reasons of First World War and the consequences of First World War. And you are going to learn about the Khilafat movement, non-cooperation movement under the second topic. And in the third topic, you are going to learn about the differing strands within the movement. And the fourth topic towards civil disobedience movement. Then the last topic is the sense of collective belonging. These are the main topics you are going to learn from this chapter, that is about nationalism in India. So under this, the first topic is about the introduction. So before going to learn the detailed information about the nationalism in India from 1920 to 1947, you should have the knowledge about what happened in India up to 1919. So let me explain clearly about Indian history up to 1919. So till 1919, till 1947, India was under the control of the Britishers. Basically, the Britishers came to India only for the trade purpose. For the establishment of their trading centers in India, there was a basic reason, that is in 1498 Vasco da Gama discovered sea route to India. Do you know who was Vasco da Gama? Vasco da Gama, he was a Portuguese explorer who came to India in 1498. Then after the discovery of sea route to India by Vasco da Gama, then Portuguese traders came to India. They took the permission from the Indian rulers and had established the trade centers in the different parts of the country. Why the Portuguese traders had established their trade centers in India? Means at that time India had the rich natural resources, especially the valuable resources are found in the large quantity, and these resources are available at cheaper rates. That is why they wanted to purchase these goods with cheaper rates from the Indians, and they wanted to sell these goods in the European markets at higher prices. Thus they wanted to get the huge profit from the Indian markets. So after the discovery of sea route to India by Vasco da Gama, Portuguese traders had established their trade centers. By seeing their profit from the Indian trade, then the Dutch traders came to India. Dutch traders means the traders who came to India from the Netherlands country were called as the Dutch traders. They also took the permission from the Indian leaders and had established their trade centers in the different parts of the country. Followed by the British traders, they also same methods they followed. They took the permission first from their England administrators, then they took the permission from the Indian local leaders and had established their trade centers in the east and the western coast, and which followed by the Danish traders. Danish traders means the traders who came to India from the Denmark are called as the Danish traders. They also followed the same methods of the Portuguese traders, Dutch traders and the British traders. They also had established their trade centers in the different parts of the country, especially in the coastal areas, because it is easy to export the goods from India to the European countries, and it is easy to import the goods from the Europe to India. And at last the French traders came to India. They also same method they followed in India. They also took the permission from the Indian rulers. They also had established their trade centers on the east and the west coast. So thus these 5 European traders came to India and had established their trade centers in India in the 15th and the 16th century. Now from this map we are able to locate the Portuguese traders wherever they had established their trade centers in India. So one thing we have to understand from this chapter, that is all these 5 European traders had established all their trade centers along the east coast and the west coast, because it is easy to export and import the goods from India to rest of the world, from the rest of the world to India. So that is why the first European traders who came to India, Portuguese, had established their trade center on the west coast, that is at Goa. This is the first trade center. Then the second trade center they had established at Dadra Nagar Haveli, which is on the west coast. Then the third trade center they had established on the Darren, which is also located on the west coast. And the fourth trade center they had established on Diu, which is also located on the west coast. So these are the 4 European traders companies European traders had established, that is Portuguese traders had established their companies on the west coast. Now we are going to locate the French traders had established their trade centers on the different parts of the country. The first one is Mahe, which is located on the west coast, and the second part is Karaikal, which is located on the east coast, and the third one is Pondicherry, which is also located on the east coast, and the last one is at Calcutta. They had established their trade centers. So these were the trade centers from the Portuguese traders and the French traders. Now from this map we are going to locate the trade centers which were established by the Danish traders. One is in Tamil Nadu, the area located between Tamil Nadu Kerala region, and the second one is Pondicherry, and one more is that is very close to the Pulicat, and the fourth one is at Masulipattnam, that is in Andhra Pradesh, and one more is located on the east coast, that is near Sinchura. These were the trade centers had established by the Danish traders. Now we are going to learn the trade centers which were established by the Dutch traders. One is in Tamil Nadu region, and the second they had established their trade center in the West Bengal and Jharkhand region, and at last the British traders had established their trade centers on the west coast. One is about in Kerala region, first one, and the second one is on the east coast, Pondicherry, and third one is Yanam, it is also on the east coast, and one more trade center they had established in the West Bengal. These were the trade centers had established by the British East India Company, both on the east coast and the west coast. So now we are going to learn, after the establishment of these trading companies in India, what happened. So all these 5 trading companies had always engaged in wars with each other to dominate on the Indian markets. So that is why all these traders were fought each other to dominate, to occupy, and to extend the trade centers both in the east and the western coast. The other European traders, they did not compete with the British East India Company because the British East India Company had the large army. British East Indian soldiers were well trained, and the British East India Company had the weapons. Because of that reason, the remaining 4 European companies, they did not compete with the British East India Company, then they left the country. Thus only one trading company was there in India, that is East India Company. After that East India Company, they extended their trade centers not only in the coastal regions, even in the interior of the country also. One major incident which was happened in 1757 due to the expansion of their trade centers in India, that is Plassey battle, which was happened in 1757. The basic reason for the Plassey battle in Indian history was, after the death of the last Mughal ruler Aurangzeb, those who ascended the throne in the Mughal empire were called the later Mughals, and they were also called as the weak Mughals, because they did not hold powers in their hands. Powers were given to their subordinates. That is why subordinates, they started independent administration. In this way, Bengal province was under the control of Murshid Quli Khan. He started his independent administration. After the death of Murshid Quli Khan, his successor Alivardi Khan came to the power. Then after the death of Alivardi Khan, his grandson Siraz Uddaulah became the Nawab of Bengal. During the Nawab of Bengal as Siraz Uddaulah, British East India Company, they started the fortification at Calcutta without the permission of Nawab of Bengal. So Nawab of Bengal did not like the British East India Company constructions and fortification. He tried to stop the fortification by the East India Company at Kolkata, and he tried to drive the British East India Company from the country. Thus what happened, East India Company Army Commander Robert Clive, he did not like the actions taken by the Nawab of Bengal. Thus he made a secret conspiracy with the Mir Jafar, who was the Army Commander of East India Company. Then he promised to the Mir Jafar that he would support to the British East India Company in the battle between the Siraz Uddaulah and East India Company. Then after the battle, he would become the Nawab of Bengal. Then there was a battle happened between the East India Company and Nawab of Bengal. Nawab of Bengal was not supported by his army commander, thus so he easily defeated by the East India Company. Thus, East India Company came to the power in the Bengal province. So this was the first incident happened in Indian history. Those who came to India for trade and became the rulers in the Bengal province. Then after this Plassey battle, British East India Company appointed Mir Jafar as the Nawab of Bengal. Then East India Company made Mir Jafar as the puppet in the hands of East India Company. So this was the incident happened in 1757. This incident we can call it as the Plassey battle. Now after the Plassey battle, the one more battle was happened between the Indian rulers and the East India Company. That battle we can call it as the Buxar battle. So after the 1757 Plassey battle, Mir Jafar became the Nawab of Bengal. He was a puppet in the hands of East India Company, and he did not like the British government policies because he did not have any powers in his hands. All the powers were in the hands of East India Company. That is why he turned against to the East India Company. Thus, East India Company removed Mir Jafar as the Nawab of Bengal and they appointed Mir Qasim as the Nawab of Bengal. Even the Mir Qasim also became a puppet in the hands of East India Company. After few years, even the Mir Qasim also turned against to the East India Company. Again the East India Company removed Mir Qasim as the Nawab of Bengal. Again they appointed Mir Jafar as the Nawab of Bengal. Thus Mir Qasim, he made a meeting with the other Indian rulers like Shah Alam II, then Shuja Uddaulah and many other Indian rulers, and he fought against to the East India Company at Buxar in 1764. This battle was known as the Buxar battle. After the Buxar battle, East India Company came to the power directly and they started direct administration in the Bengal province. This was one of the major incident happened in Indian history. So till 1764 they were the traders and they did not enter into the Indian politics directly, but after the 1764 Buxar battle they became the real rulers in the Indian history. Then after the Buxar battle, the British East India Company wanted to expand their administration in the entire country. For that they followed the different methods in our country. In this way, first they attacked on the South Indian, one of the major and the powerful kingdom which was under the control of Mysore rulers. East India Company fought with the Mysore dynasty rulers in 4 different wars. The wars between the Mysore rulers and the East India Company were called as the Anglo-Mysore wars. There were 4 wars were happened between the Mysore rulers and the British East India Company. The first Anglo-Mysore war was happened from 1767 to 1769. 2 years it was happened. This war was happened between Hyder Ali, who was the ruler of Mysore kingdom, and the East India Company. After 2 years, due to the Madras Treaty, this war was ended. Again one more war started between the Hyder Ali and later it was supported by his son Tipu Sultan versus East India Company, which was happened from 1780 to 1784. After 4 years of war, this was also ended due to a treaty between the East India Company and the Mysore rulers. Then again the third Anglo-Mysore war was happened between the Tipu Sultan and the East India Company. It was from 1790 to 1792, 2 years it was happened. And again the fourth Anglo-Mysore war was happened between the Tipu Sultan and the East India Company from 1798 to 1799. So after the death of Tipu Sultan, this Mysore entire kingdom was occupied by the British East India Company. Thus they extended their empire in the South India also. This was one method they followed to the expansion of the British East India Company in India. Then after that they concentrated on the western part which was under the control of the Maratha Empire. So Marathas were the powerful rulers who had established their administration on the western part. East India, there were three major wars were happened between the East India Company and the Maratha rulers were called as the Anglo-Maratha wars. The first Anglo-Maratha war was happened from 1775 to 1782. The second Anglo-Maratha war was happened from 1803 to 1805. Then the last Anglo-Maratha war was happened from 1817 to 1818. After the third Maratha war, Anglo-Maratha wars, then the Maratha entire kingdom was occupied by the East India Company. Thus, they extended their kingdom in the western part also. So here we can understand in each and every war how the British East India Company won and occupied the Indian territories. Means there was a reason, that is, at the time East India Company had the large army. The army had the weapons and the soldiers were well trained. But whereas in India, the Indian kingdoms, the rulers, soldiers' strength is very less and they did not have the powerful weapons. And there was no training for the Indian soldiers. Because of these reasons, all the Indian territories came under the control of the East India Company. So these were the two major wars were happened between the East India Company and the Indian rulers, and they followed the different methods to extend their entire kingdom, entire administration in the country. In this, the main one of the important method followed by the Lord Dalhousie in 1835, this policy we can call it as the doctrine of lapse. Doctrine of lapse means, according to the doctrine of lapse, if any Indian ruler is died without a male heir or successor or a child, then his or her kingdom would be comes under the control of the British East India Company. According to this doctrine of lapse method, the kingdoms of Satara, Jhansi, Nagpur, Udaipur, Sambalpur, then Jaipur and at last Arcot, all these kingdoms came under the control of the East India Company because these kingdom rulers did not have the male child and the successors. So these were the incidents happened in Indian history up to 1919. Once again we can see one by one. First one is 1757 Plassey battle between the Siraj ud Dowlah and Robert Clive. Then after 1764 Buxar battle between the Mir Qasim group and the East India Company. Then Anglo-Mysore wars from 1767 to 1792. Then doctrine of lapse is one method they followed. Then subsidiary alliance. Subsidiary alliance, let me explain in few words. Subsidiary alliance is a policy which is introduced by the Cornwallis, who was the Governor General of East India Company. According to this subsidiary alliance, Indian rulers did not have the power to maintain their own army. Whenever the kings required the army to engage in the wars, they had to take soldiers from the East India Company. Thus, East India Company had supplied army to the Indian rulers. Then after the war, that Indian rulers had to pay some amount to the East India Company. If they were unable to pay the amount to the East India Company, their kingdoms would become under the control of the East India Company. This policy was known as the subsidiary alliance. So after seeing all these incidents, Indian leaders, they started a major movement against the East India Company in 1857. This revolt we can call it as the 1857 revolt. Even 1857 revolt is also known as the first war of Indian independence. This revolt was led by Jhansi Lakshmibai, Nana Saheb, Tantia Tope and many other leaders, but this revolt was so easily suppressed by the East India Company because of lack of proper leadership, lack of soldiers, that is training and weapons. after the major incident happened in India, that is 1857 revolt. Then the Indian leaders, that is educated Indians, decided to establish a association in the country to get independence from the East India Company. Before that, there were many associations had been established in India, especially in the Madras province, Bengal province, and in the Bombay province. But these were limited to a particular areas but not extended to the entire country. That is why at last finally Indian educated leaders decided to establish a common organization for the entire country. Thus, under the support of a retired British officer A.O. Hume, Indian leaders had established one Indian National Congress in 1885. So after the establishment of Indian National Congress in 1885, W.C. Banerjee became the first president of Indian National Congress. The main motto of Indian National Congress was to get independence from the British East India Company. So it started its function from 1885 to till 1947, but Indian National Congress was led by different leaderships from 1885 to 1947. We can divide the entire Indian National Congress movement in three different phases. The first phase was under the control of moderates, second phase was the extremists, and the third phase was the Gandhian period. Moderates became the leaders in the Indian National Congress from 1885 to 1905. In this moderates, the main leaders was Dadabhai Naoroji, Gopalakrishna Gokhale, Firoz Shah Mehta, Badruddin Tabji, W.C. Banerjee were the famous leaders under the moderates period. Their main methods followed against the British government were only giving representations requesting the British government. British government did not care about their representations and the request. That is why the Indian National Congress was led by one more group, that is called the extremist group. Extremists became the leaders of Indian National Congress from 1905 to 1919. The main leaders under this extremist group were the Lala Lajpat Rai, Bipin Chandra Pal, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, but popularly these three members were known as the Lal Bal Pal. Their methods from 1905 to 1919 were violent methods. Also, India could not get independence. Then after in 1919, Mahatma Gandhi entered in the Indian national movement and he continued till 1947. Under his leadership, finally India got independence, but he followed the methods of non-violence. So these were the main incidents happened in Indian history from 1885 to 1919. Okay students, this is the introduction about this chapter. In the next class we will learn the